live in a minute. We think. Well, good evening and welcome to you. It's been some while, that's for sure. And what I'm going to do is have a quick chat to you lovely people that are already here, and then if I can sort out what's going on here. Bear with me a minute. We get rid of that. We don't want that. Can't get rid of it. Yes, we can. No, we can't. Okay, let's do that way then. Okay, good evening and welcome to you, as I've just said. And hello to Wizardry by Colin. And I'll change the camera to myself. And how are you keeping? I'll take my glasses off to show you I can actually see a little bit further than the camera, but I need the glasses to read the chat. Good evening, Mark, and welcome. Pete Pisted Trees, he's here. Good evening, Pete. Mark Pritchard, Jennifer's Craft and Creations. Hi, Jennifer. Philip J, Mark Pritchard again, and Mark Pritchard again. Stop talking so much, Mark. And Michelle. Hello, Michelle, the wonderful Michelle Oosby and High Speed Woods. Good evening and welcome. Richard Old. And indeed, I'm just looking through here. Bride of Art Woodturning. Don't know who he is. And TJ Turning from Terry. Don't know who he is either, but welcome, whoever you are. Susie Swiss Woodturner. Good evening to you and welcome. Lawrence Bajega. Good evening to you, sir. And going down the list, Tommy's Workshop. Good evening, Tommy, and welcome. Stuart Farini, my old mate Stuart. Good evening and welcome, Stuart. Roger Woods, good evening to you. Good evening to Woodturning by Barry. Good evening to you too, sir. And welcome, of course. Marcel Girette, good evening and welcome. And Tommy's Workshop, I said hello, but you're worth two. So hello again, Tommy. How are you? I'll try not to go through it all again when I go properly live at 7 o'clock. Okay, I think I've covered virtually everybody that's on at the moment. Brent Beecroft, DJ Brinkley, good evening. Mike Dench, Barry Fisher, I said hello to you, but hello again. Well, hello guys, and Tony Easton, good evening, how are you? It's great to be back on the tube, live with you lovely people. What I will do is introduce you to my earworms at 7 o'clock officially, but I shall bring them in for the people that are here already. And we're joined by the wonderful Pete Ravenscroft. No, you're not.
Good evening, everyone.
Excuse me, Terry, just wait your turn, will you? Just wait your turn. Good evening to Pete and also to Terry Bray from TJ Turning. And last and by all means least, my good old mate, Brian from Heartwood Turning. And
you said earlier.
No, well, I can't repeat what I said earlier, can I really?
Well, this is true.
Mike Atkinson, good evening. And
I am here for safety reasons. Over there, not there.
Yes, Pete's actually making sure that I don't make any mistakes. I can't even use masking tape in public anymore, as you all know. Mama Bear's Shed, Tracy, how are you? Good evening and welcome. And Kitane OG, hello to you. I'm going to rely on my earworms if I've missed anybody. And if Rob CP turns up, I do not want to let... Oh, hello, Rob. How are you? Good evening and welcome, Rob. And David Vaughan, good evening and welcome. William Kelly. And it's great to see you. The main reason for tonight is obviously to enjoy myself, for you to enjoy yourself, but I have to give these three guys who are earworming for me the opportunity to take the mick and generally cause havoc with me, as I've done with them for the last 3 months, because they very kindly kept me in the loop by allowing me to earworm for them. But all things come to those who deserve it. So tonight I will be lambasted.
Right.
Yes.
Echoing.
You're echoing.
Yep. So you've probably got desktop and
I've got desktop
audio turned on.
I've got desktop audio on. Take that off.
No, desktop on, NDI off.
Right, thank you.
If you can see it, all right.
NDI
If you can
off.
see it, all right.
There we go.
Done.
Yeah, I got NDI-B, NDI-A and NDI-B. Right, okay. Thanks for letting us know that we're echoing. Are we echoing now? Or when Pete talks?
Are we sorted now? Am I still echoey? Or somebody let us know in the chat. That'd be grand.
It would be indeed.
We're about 20 seconds behind the chat, so it'll take a while.
Okay. Knew the
Make sure you
problem.
can hear us all properly.
It is really
smoothly
coming through, isn't it?
Well, it's Mike Gimp speeded up yet, has he? Well, it's Mike Gimp speeded up yet, so he's got to get back into flow.
Pedro.
Lewis, Klondike Craftsman, good evening to you, sir, and welcome. And Pedro Rodriguez da Costa, good evening to you, and welcome.
Thanks, Joseph.
And
All
Dave.
good now.
Joseph King, good evening, Joseph. How are you? And sort of welcome. Yeah, Joseph's a mate. Well, not a mate, he's an ex-mate of mine. Tourette's Turner, good evening. How are you? And Barry Chitty, good evening to you.
Thanks.
Colin King, good God, man. There's a blast from the past. Good evening, Colin, and welcome. Colin lives not too far from where I am. And I think that's covered everybody now. Thomas Rooney,
Once
good
people
evening.
get to know Mike, they become ex-mates.
Yeah, they always do. It's because they're so nasty to me. Alan the Woodpecker, good evening, and thank you. It's good to be back. I'll ignore that, Terry. Dieter Echenbacher, good evening. How are you? Hi, let's begin. We will begin when I'm ready. And that could be a while. That could be a while. I'm only joking, Dieter. Believe me, I'm only joking. Paul Hoyton, the Grisby Turner, good evening to you, sir. How are you? And Dean Turner, good evening and welcome. Mark Bade, good grief. Mark, how are you? An old mate of mine from the States. Haven't seen him for a long time. How are you, Mark? Hope you're well, my friend. I'm absolutely already blown away by the number of people that have turned up to see me make a mess of things. We will be putting to the test whether the turner with less experience needs to practice. That's another thing which I will say officially after 7 o'clock when we go live properly. Steve Robbins, good evening to you.
It's after 7 o'clock.
It's nearly 5 past 7.
Mr.
Wolf.
Do you know?
It's 2 minutes past 7.
Hang on. Could be 7 in the morning. Which 7
Right,
o'clock? Could be 7 in the morning.
It is actually. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong clock. This clock's 3
Right.
minutes short. Yes.
Get on with it.
Okay. Good evening and welcome, everybody. It's nice to be back. Welcome to everybody. If I've missed a Kaiji Shed, good evening to you. And if I've missed anybody, accept my apologies. Tonight, as you can see, I am joined by a plethora of rubbish, starting off with Pete Ravenscroft of Pete Twisted Trees.
Good evening, everyone.
Wait for it, Terry. And I'm not 70, Mr. Terry Bray of TJ Turning. Say hello, Terry. And he hasn't got his official badge on tonight. And
hello, everybody.
As I said earlier on,
hello, everybody.
Last
Welcome
and
aboard.
Definitely least, Brian, who's B of... okay, Brian of Woodturning. My good old mate, Brian.
Good evening, everybody.
Today is not going to be turning a piece as such. It's going to be going through the tools. It's for the turner with less experience. I have to keep saying that now. And it's also an opportunity for these three guys to get back at me. Some of you heard me say that, and those that haven't heard me have heard me say it twice. As usual, as I'm turning, any questions, please ask in the chat, and the guys will relay them to me. Any sarcastic comments, any jokes or anything will be relayed, and I hope that we can answer those questions and laugh.
Apparently I'm echoing.
You're echoing?
Jennifer says I'm echoing.
All NDIs need to be muted on the audio, but the desktop audio needs to be on.
Okay, that's done. Everybody's done now, so there should be no echo. Anymore. Yeah, is everything all? Is everything all right? All right. Yeah, it should be okay now. I've deleted all the NDIs.
And hope.
Okay, so what we're going to do is go through the basic tools safety goggles on with bifocals at the bottom so I can see what I'm turning, which is a bit shocking actually because I've never seen my turning clearly before. Yeah, so what I intend to do is to go through 5 or 6 tools and the flexibility that those tools offer. Their names sometimes belie what they're actually capable of doing. Now the first thing, if I go to the overhead, the first thing we've got is a spindle. We're going to go through to a spindle. This is a piece of oak, pretty grotty oak, and the normal thing that we use to rough down is a spindle roughing gouge. Now there is flexibility with the spindle roughing gouge. One thing I will say before, and I most probably say it more than once tonight, you do never use a spindle roughing gouge anywhere near a bowl. And we can answer that a bit more in detail later. So if we're turning a piece of square stock to round, if I put you can hear that banging. Okay, I'm only doing 300 RPM. So really, this is one of those cases where speed is your friend, because the quicker you're turning, the gaps, if you like, the air is coming around a lot quicker. Makes for a much better experience. Make sure everything's locked down. So we've got the spindle roughing gouge. Again, I'm going to change the camera to that one, so you can see in the top right hand corner there body movement. I'll just turn this off again. I know I've said this before. When you're going from, let's say, right to left, you don't want to be stood back here keeping your body still and moving your hands, because you don't have much control with that. What you want to do is I'm going to be going from my right to my left. Okay, I'm going this way. Now what you need to do there is to be comfortable at the end of the cut. So you lean into the cut, make sure everything's clear. I should be turning at about, I don't know, 1500 revs, something like that. And as usual, contact the tool rest, rub the bevel, lift the handle to engage the cut, and move along the work with your body. And that.
Couple of things, Mike. Bernard Footer says, good to see you back, Mike.
Thanks, Bernard.
Their treatment was totally successful.
And welcome. Yes, it was. The only thing is, Bernard, I can see what I'm doing now. Yep.
Robert Hodgepodge
Mark
was in
Bates
saying
said,
hello.
wow, Mike, there are almost 100 people watching, but no pressure.
All right.
Well, there's 112 now, so there is some pressure.
Thank you.
I should warn the chat that we will be reading your comments, but we might modify them for comedic effect if we feel like it.
Tonight is going to be an enjoyable, well, hopefully they're all enjoyable nights. So that is one of the, and also always make sure to hinge up your tailstock. Now I'm leaving that there for the moment. So we're using our spindle roughing gouge, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Now the other thing you could use, I mean you could use anything really. This is a 3/8 bowl gouge. Okay. Now a 3/8 bowl gouge is adept at doing the same job. I'm going to go from left to right, so I'm going to be over here when I'm comfortable and start. And all you're doing is using just to the right of the nose, and I drop and put in. If your tool rest isn't in the right position, always stop and move it to when you're happy. Okay, so you can do it this way. And again, move across the work. Okay, don't hold the tool hard with much force, just nice and lightly.
You remind me what speed delay's got, Mike, because I wasn't paying attention.
1500. I would normally do it more than that actually, but 1500 is adequate. So the bowl gouge can be used not just for bowls, but can also be used for roughing down. Now we're nearly round now, so I'll put another piece on afterwards for the other tools. Now I'll go back to I'll do it. As you all know, I favour the radius skew. Well, you can also use a skew to rough down, and I'll do that on another piece so you can see it from square to round. We'll go back to the spindle roughing gouge for a minute, because the spindle roughing gouge can also be used on a spindle to get rid of excess wood and do a bit of basic shaping. So it has two uses. So again, the same thing applies. You just contact the bevel, move your body, and what we must be aware of, I haven't actually turned for about 3 months, but this is really enjoyable because I'm actually getting shavings. So you can use your spindle roughing gouge not only to get rid of wood, but to do basic shaping. So if you could do a cove, if you should so wish. So it does.
I have a visitor in Scott Steenvoorden. He says, "Welcome back, Mike."
Thank you.
He says he's been looking forward to this. I have no idea why, of course.
Really? You must have a sad life then. Thank you. It's nice to have you and welcome. Okay, so
It's got a proper question.
yeah. Oh,
What's the proper length of the tool over the rest when engaged with the piece?
Right. Okay. The basic rule of thumb is you have your tool rest as near to the work as possible. The reason for that is that you can't then get your fingers in there and possibly cause problems with the tool. I personally don't like to be like this when I'm working. That is about as close as I'd want to be. I don't want to be right up. That's just a personal thing. But for safety reasons, if you're rounding a piece off, you start out here when it's square, you want to stop the lathe and move your tool rest in. I like to be about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch away, maybe just over, and that gives me a little bit more movement. I do see people doing it literally with about 1/8 of an inch. That's fine. Everybody has their own preferences, but that's the sort of distance that I personally like.
Less than a finger width is good.
Yeah.
Jeff Braun has joined us. He's a first-time viewer. He was in Steve's earlier, so hi, Jeff.
Who's that? Sorry, Jeff. Good
Jeff
evening.
Braun, he's from America.
Good evening, Jeff, and welcome to you. Welcome to you, sir. Okay, so we've covered the basics of the spindle roughing gouge, and the point I want to make is that now we go on to a spindle gouge. Now, bearing in mind, we can use the bowl gouge on a spindle quite easily. A bowl gouge is also, the 3/8 is the standard size that comes with most sets. The thing with a bowl gouge, it is more stable than a spindle gouge. And I quite like using the bowl gouge. I also have a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, which is a little bit more stable than the 3/8. But this 1/2 inch bowl gouge here, although it's got a 55-degree bevel, gets rid of wood really efficiently. You can take great big lumps of wood out to get rid of your excess. It's a very effective tool. So you can do a lot with a bowl gouge apart from just use it on bowls. Now, the other thing is obviously the spindle gouge. Now, a spindle gouge is a little bit less flexible because it is a lot thinner and it's meant for finer work. You can still, if I turn the lathe up a bit now, going up to 2000 RPM. Okay, so the same rules apply with any piece, any tool you have in your hands. You anchor it to the tool rest, rub the bevel, and then lift into the cut. Now, with a spindle gouge, you can still take quite big lumps of wood away, but where they really come into their own are for the finer things. If you want to do it, let's just say a little cove. So if you start a cove there, you get more feel for what you're doing.
Mark Blades has asked a question. He said, Mike, perhaps you could address which tool you should purchase first as a beginner, because most folks don't have enough money to buy several tools in the beginning, or even know which ones they want.
No.
It's a good question, actually, but it's a very difficult one to answer.
It is. It actually, it's been the guys in as well. I think that sort of a question, it's an open-ended question, Mark. My personal opinion is rather look at what you don't need, and obviously as a beginner or a newer turner you wouldn't know that, or the turner with less experience you wouldn't know that so much. I think a spindle roughing gouge for for the newer turner is, I would say, a must, personally, because you've got to get used to the tool, and it's a nice solid tool for getting your pieces to round. Do you need a spindle gouge to begin with? It depends what you're going to do. What I would say is a spindle roughing gouge, a spindle gouge, and a bowl gouge, 3/8 bowl gouge. Those three tools and a parting tool. So there's 4 tools I think you need. You can get away. Yes, you could. You can part off with a skew chisel, but let's be honest about it. That is not going to be a newer turner's go-to tool to part off. Get used to your gouges first, unless you're going to be a production turner and do nothing else but use a skew chisel like Steve Jones and the like. So I personally would say a spindle roughing gouge, a bowl gouge, a spindle gouge, a 3/8 spindle gouge, and a parting tool are the 4 absolutely must-have tools for the newer turner, because you can do 95% of all your turning with that. And the point of tonight is to show you the bowl gouge. As I explained, the bowl gouge is a very flexible tool. You can use it on spindles, not a problem at all. Whereas a spindle gouge, a 3/8 spindle gouge, which I will show later on, is not so easy to use on a bowl because it hasn't got the stability that you need.
Terence would like to know what grind you would have on a spindle gouge.
I personally have 2. I've got a 45 on this one. No, actually that one's a 40 degrees and 45. I used to go down to 30 degrees, but to be honest with you, I get everything I want done with a 40 degree, and so 45 degrees is one of them. For the less finer work and my finials and stuff, I'll use the 40 degree and the skew chisel. But yeah, 40 to 45 degrees I use, but you can go down to 30 degrees, 35 degrees.
For the turner with less
experience. For the turner with less experience, 45.
I would say fingernail grind is a good thing.
Yes, I mean
choose that on a spindle and a bowl gouge, and they will come new at 45 degrees.
Yeah.
Use that when you start. If you want to change it later on, change it later on. But when you start, stick with what you get from the shop.
I totally agree. And the main reason I agree with Pete there is not because I like agreeing with Pete, because I don't, but the thing is that you don't know what you need. So if you start with a sort of in the middle of the road bevel, get used to that, and then you will then find where its shortcomings are, and then you can start to experiment a bit. And I do hate agreeing with Pete. Sorry.
Mark Pritchard has just put in, and what about the tools you buy and never use? We may have a few of them, everybody, I think.
Yeah, that comes with more experience. It's really a bit of a dilemma, because the more experience you have, the more tools you have you don't need. Where you'd think as you gain experience, you would have less tools because you know what you need, but it doesn't work that way.
You can tell what tools you don't need because they're close to the length you bought them at.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is when you do buy a new tool, be prepared to sharpen it, because they invariably never come sharp enough to use.
No.
So just bear
Always.
that in mind. You might try it out and think this is no good, but really it needs to be sharpened.
Yeah. Every tool. There are a few more manufacturers now that are actually shipping tools ready to go. But 10 years ago, no tool had an edge on it, and that's something possibly the most important thing is to have a sharp tool all the time. And the old adage of if you think it needs sharpening, it does, because you start to put extra pressure on the work and you're pushing through the work as opposed to letting the work come down on the edge and feed itself through, basically, with just a little bit of encouragement, as opposed to giving it loads of welly, because that's when problems arise. So yeah, it goes without saying, as Terry said, make sure your tools are always sharp.
Joseph has asked, can you demonstrate the correct technique for turning with a shovel?
I could, but unfortunately, my wife's got the shovel in the house because we always take it in the house when it rains, so I can't get it at the moment, Joseph, so I do apologise.
Based on Mike's previous film, when he learns to skew, it's pretty much the same as using a shovel, really.
Yes, I'll demonstrate that in a minute, don't you worry. Okay, so what we've said is that the spindle gouge you can do. Do you want to see media with the spindle gouge? As I say, you can do coves. This is not a masterclass in doing coves or beads, but you can do beads. And if we just get a little parting tool here and just make a little on there, so we can take the spindle gouge and we can roll a bead. Can you roll a bead after all this time? Nearly. You get the idea. It's a bit of a sharp bead, but nevertheless. Now, with a bowl gouge, you could do it, but it's because of the heft of it. You've got to start. We'll turn this off because we don't particularly want. If we're doing a bead, and that's a fairly wide distance between there, you're going to start fouling there, and that's where your spindle gouge can get in to the tighter places because it has a much shallower profile. So with regards to that, the spindle gouge has that as well. Now what I'm going to do is quickly just change this for another piece, just to go through the this is a piece of tulip wood.
Anthony Green's got a question.
Yep.
When you're sharpening, do you go back to the grinder each time or use a credit card diamond sharpening plate?
I normally I go back to the ProEdge. I go to the ProEdge. I'll go to my sharpening system much more often than I used to at a grinder because it's so easy. I just turn one step and sharpen, and by the time I've got the credit card out, I use the credit card a bit on a Skew chisel, but on my gouges I just tend to go straight to the ProEdge, whereas before I might just touch up the edge. But for me, time is not a problem, as you know, with the length of my lives. So I'm not a production turner. If I was doing a demo, proper demo, and I had a certain time, I might well use the credit card a bit more often. But I have no the great thing with the ProEdge for me, it is so quick, it's easily repeatable every time, and it takes less than 30 seconds just to do two sweeps, and you've got a sharp tool again. So yes, you could use your credit card, of course, if you should so wish. We'll go this way now. Again, always check. So we're talking here, this is a piece of tulip wood. I'm not a great fan of tulip wood, I must be honest. Using the Skew chisel. There are two ways. I'm using the radius skew here, and I'll also attempt to do this with the straight over skew just to keep everybody happy in the earworm world. Again, you want your speed. Same thing applies, and you can go across, should you so wish, to use your skew to take off the corners and get it round. Again, the same thing as hopefully the picture will show. I'm using my body, I'm not using my arms, I'm locking in. I'm not holding it too tightly. And the other way, and again, we'll just move this in. If I ever use a skew chisel to do roughing down, is the peeling cut, which basically is just lifting the handle and advancing forward. And I find that a very effective way of getting stock to round. Now you'll notice
does remove timber quickly as well.
It does very quickly, but don't be too aggressive, because if you raise your handle too quickly and you're not rubbing the bevel, you're going to be working off an edge and it could dig in. But as I say, this is tulip wood. We're not looking at finish here. We're looking at getting rid of wood. And you'll notice on my radius skews, I have about just over ½ an inch of a straight grind here for this sort of an operation. Whereas if I use the standard skew, this could be fun. If I use a standard skew, you don't want to engage the whole, by any means, the whole width. This is an inch. I would go no more than ½ an inch if I'm doing that, because that's the chappy you don't want to get caught. If I turn this off, and we don't want any hero moves, if I'm going in here and I start to go over here, and that it's going to dig in here, look, and I dig there, and that's going to lop it down like that. So when you're doing an operation like this, only use a quarter maybe, or a third of the total blade width, and don't get that blade, the whole blade, in contact. So you leave in a few ridges there, but then what you do here is just go across to get rid of those ridges. And it's much easier, I find it easier, if I'm using, and then I literally just twist a little bit, so I'm cutting about here, and I can run down the length of the piece to get rid of those ridges, if I do it properly.
I'm going to interrupt you again.
Yeah.
Dean Turner said, question guys, do you find it a pain to change the belt on a ProEdge to a higher grit all the time? And would it be over the top to buy another ProEdge so you can have 2 grits always available?
Oh, I got to come in here before anybody says a word. No, it takes seconds. And if you've got to go to a lower grit, you're doing a major reprofile, it's not recommended. You leave the guard off, and it takes seconds to change the belt. When you've got your heavy grits on, you've got 80 grit, you want to do a major reprofile. But once you've gone through 120, 240, I've got a diamond belt, and that diamond belt stays on all the time. The only time it comes off is when I do a profile, which isn't very often. So the diamond belt
basically, if you hit a nail and you damage a tool,
yes,
or if you bought a new tool,
exactly.
Other than that, you stick with the one that's on there.
Yeah. And
Colin's asking, what grip belt would you recommend for sharpening?
If you haven't got a diamond, you really you don't need that. 240 is all you need. 120.
120 actually.
I was going to say 120 would be adequate.
120 is what Sorby recommend for wood turning tools.
Yeah.
Just as an observation, Scott Steenvoorden says, I'm sweating just watching you use the skew, never mind using it.
And
personal comment on the skew. The technique that Most has shown, taking square to round, there's one bad thing, is that a skew has got 2 bevels, so it takes twice as long to sharpen as a spindle roughing gouge.
Yep.
It's only got 1 bevel, so why not use a spindle roughing gouge?
Indeed.
But 2 things to its advantage. One is you get used to using a skew, it reduces the fear of the skew. And the other one, if you're doing small pieces, that's the tool you're going to use to finish, so you might as well start with it as well.
Couldn't agree more. The thing is, with the skew, you do get a superb finish. When it's working right and you've got everything going as you want it to go, it is a very versatile tool, extremely versatile. There is a fear about it. There shouldn't be. I haven't touched a skew for 2 months, 3 months in earnest, and it's not because I'm clever. It gives me no more fear than anything else, because it's the basic thing: bevel, contact, and lift the handle like you would with a gouge, whatever. The thing is with a skew, it can bite you because you're not concentrating on the trailing edge, on the heel basically. And the other way, if you're using the heel, the leader, you do not want both of those points to be touching the wood at the same time. And that's what causes your spirals, etc. You get a catch. When you do a round over, if you're just rounding over something with the skew, as long as you've got bevel contact, you're not afraid of it, you're not pulling, you're pushing through the wood, not heavily, you're just guiding it through the wood, you'll get a perfect cut. And as Pete says, it cuts down on sanding and everything else. But you have to get used to it, and you only get used to it with practice.
Practice. So Todd at Glen Grove Works has just said somewhere in the chat, he says he found it's best to practice on some pieces of pine, nothing simple shapes, and then skew can become second nature to you.
Indeed.
Anyway, every skew that comes out of the factory comes out with a certain number of built-in catches.
It does.
But once you've used all those built-in catches, it never catches again.
No, that's right. And the trouble is, I wish I used mine more, because it still get catches, you see. And I've had it 10 years, so I should use it more.
You haven't used enough, have you?
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Got to get rid of those built-in catches.
And the cheaper the skew, the more catches come with it. Funny enough, if you've got a really good skew by a good maker, the catches are less. Believe that, and you believe anything. Okay, so we've covered. Okay, while we're on the subject of the skew, the other thing is as well, obviously, for making tenons. Now, yes, you can make. Hang on, no, we'll. Coming off camera just for a minute, but the other lads are there for a second. Take that bit of tulip off. This is not in order, actually, so you must forgive me, people. I was going to do some end grain hollowing as well and do that. Let's just think. Okay, we've established that a bowl gouge can be used on a spindle quite effectively. And obviously a spindle gouge can too, and there are various uses of the skew chisel. I don't want to go through, I can go through the cuts if you want me to, but it's really not about that, it's about the versatility. So if you wanted to put a tenon on something, actually I can put that back in. If I want to...
the boys joined us, and also Andy Lerner joined us ages ago, but we couldn't get wood in edgeways, so...
Nothing new there, then.
Yeah, and by the way, lads, can I'd like it all, people to answer in the chat, can I have a bit more stick, please? A bit more Mickey taking, because it's not happening.
A bit more abuse.
We're building it up gradually, Mike.
Oh, good. For Mike, please.
That's okay. It's only been half an hour, and no one's been nasty to me yet. Okay,
and
so...
the Woodturner's joined us as well. Hi, Radar.
Who, sorry?
Radar.
Oh, Radar. Good evening and welcome.
Joe Sanchez.
Welcome along. Okay, so parting tool. I'm going to go to the overhead now. Parting tool. I think that's a good one, isn't it? Because it shows the body movement as well. And I do like body movement. No, a parting tool. Okay, the humble parting tool. It's the normal go-to tool if you're going to make a tenon. Okay, and say just lift the handle and follow through in an arcing motion. Actually, that one might be better. Yeah, that might be better. In an arcing motion. So again, rub the bevel, lift the handle, and literally very lightly push in. Let the wood come onto the wood, let the wood come onto the edge, and stop. Now that gives you a nice square shoulder. Now, you can also use, obviously, a skew chisel for that. So again, you can have a square shoulder, providing you have the leading edge parallel with your bedways, okay? So the same thing as before, rub the bevel, lift the handle, and push in. So there. Now if you go to the overhead, the advantage of the skew in that respect, if you have a dovetail on your jaws, I mean that's a very big dovetail, a very big tenon. But you can literally, let's just say that is the angle. You just go in. I'm making a big dovetail here, but I've now made a dovetail. And all I've done is literally lift my handle. I've placed this where I want it, and it's created a dovetail for my jaws. Obviously, it's too big, but it's for demonstration. Yes, Brian?
Apparently you're echoing again, Mike.
I'm echoing.
Apparently.
You're the only one
Jennifer, Craft and Creations just said that.
Yeah, Colin said it as well.
Echoes
I'm
only
not
on this
hearing you
camera.
echoing, but
I've got...
I can't hear
YouTube,
I can't hear
I
the
can't
echo
bother to
either.
watch YouTube.
Say again, Pete?
So I'm not hearing you echo, but I'm not watching it on YouTube.
No.
Neither am I. But
Bad enough watching it here, isn't it?
which camera was it, guys? Is it the overhead camera or what?
I've got nothing on apart from... Hang on. No, that's off. All I've got on is desktop audio, face cams off, Jabbra's on, and that's it. That's the only thing on.
Right. What about on the view you were just using from the tailstock?
Malcolm Douglas says it's only when you change the camera.
Oh, okay.
The echo
Right.
is on the other camera.
Right, okay. There's nothing on there, nothing on there. Nothing on there.
Camera on the other side. That one.
That's weird. Is that happening now then? Because there's nothing connected to it audio wise. That's really weird.
An end view, maybe on the end view.
Sorry about this, people.
Well, there's a few that said it's just when you change the camera.
No.
I don't know which camera it was you changed to.
Desktop. I've got to keep desktop audio on, haven't I? Yeah, that's all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Jabra.
That's it. Desktop and Jabra should be the only ones on.
That's all I've got. Excuse me, people, a minute. Just having a quick technical check here. Try and get it. Desktop audio and camera. That's that camera on the overhead. The same. It shouldn't change for any of them, should it, really? Center. Desktop
Right,
audio.
the side view is the one with the problem.
What, this one?
That one.
That's the one with the problem.
Or a picture in picture. Side view with the overhead.
That's because the camcorder's on. See?
Well
done. Yeah, that's it. That should be sorted now. Thank you very much.
Ruth said
Thanks,
she got
everyone.
an echo. Ruth said Mike's got an echo. I said, well, yeah, I'm sitting next to her.
Yes.
She can hear me as well.
Right. Okay. As we all know, officially, I'm having a vape now.
and Mark Pritchard said, are you sure you've had your eyes done, Mike?
Look, Mark, am I looking into the camera or not? I know exactly where you are. I know where I am. And I'm just going to turn around and do the lathe now. And yeah. Yes, they work very well. Thank you.
See, it appears now that everything's good to go.
Yeah, it was a technical issue.
I don't know how they figure that out, because...
Stop vaping on the screen and get on with your work. Come on.
Exactly. Well, do something, for goodness sake.
I'm not going to. Right, okay. So,
there's only 151 people watching you vape.
Joseph said he really went in for a vasectomy, but they missed.
Maybe I should have taken that along. Right, okay. So, that is the beauty of the skew. The problem with the with the radius skew, I say a problem, if you're, let's just say we're doing this again, and I won't go down so deep. Now, as you can see, it's already, if I want to get a dovetail on that, I can do it, but it's not as easy. I've got to sort of come over. It's not as easy as it is with a standard skew. But for doing dovetails and things, it's brilliant. You can actually, if you should so wish, you could even do a tenon with your spindle gouge, because what happens is that your cut will be in the direction your bevel is pointing. So if we want to, let's say, make a tenon here, just using to the left of the nose, if I go this way, as we would normally, to make a chamfer, let's say, bevel is running, let's go 45 degrees. So if I go into the wood here and follow it, I'm following, and I've got a chamfer. Now, if I want to make that chamfer into a square, into a square shoulder, all I have to do is go in this way. Whoops, and not get a catch, of course. And all you're doing is going the way that the bevel is pointing. So wherever you point, and then you can clean that up again, get the cut, don't push in too hard, and lift the handle. And there you've got a nice square tenon. So you can do it with, you could do it with any gouge, a bowl gouge, a spindle gouge, whatever. But as Pete says, why would you when you can use a tool specifically for a job? What I'm trying to do here, and with the input from the earworms and anybody else in the chat, each tool is actually capable of doing a lot more than the original use of it, if you like. Okay.
Yeah, that catch you got, Mike, by the way, was one of the factory supplied ones.
Yes, and that was on a spindle gouge, and that really annoys me. Why did I get
Trevor
that catch?
P said, I'm surprised at your great age you can remember where the lathe is. He said, but I added to it.
Thank you.
Todd wants to know if you're going to be colouring these pieces.
Yes, definitely.
And a serious question
Yeah.
from High Speed Wood. Can you put a finish on very wet wood so you don't have to wait until it's dry to put a finish on? That's Boyd Christie from Canada.
It depends what the finish is.
It depends what the finish is. It depends how you cut it as well, because if you cut it thin,
Yeah.
by the time it's spun on the lathe, it's not wet anymore.
Can I ask who it was just asked whether I got a colour? I can't remember.
That was
That
Todd.
was Todd.
I was Todd.
Todd.
Yeah, look.
In Cove.
There we go.
He's
Okay, colouring.
Colouring is done.
That's it.
done.
That's my colouring. That's my colouring for the year.
You're supposed to wipe it on with a kitchen towel, Mike.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll do that. See, I'm being
Goodness sake.
told how to colour now. You see, colour it in there, and I mean,
colours.
oh, look at that! Look at
Look,
that!
it's amazing.
Oh, absolutely fabulous! This tulip wood doesn't suck in the
There's
colour
Steve
much,
from
does it?
SK Crafts, Mike. Steve from SK Crafts is a bit tardy. He's a bit late.
Yeah, hello,
He says,
Steve. Welcome.
What are we turning tonight?
We're turning.
Wood.
Turning wood.
Shavings.
We're not turning a
Shavings.
piece. Well, this I will turn again. When I come off air, I will spend some time with this, and I'll put sanding sealer on it, maybe a couple more coats, some different colours, maybe blend them in. The usual thing I do with wood. Okay, so
I suppose your resin series comes next time, Mike.
yeah, well, actually, the resin. Here we go. The resin is ready to go. I've cast it. All I got to do is turn it. Look. But yeah, okay. Can't catch me out, mate. I tell you. What was that? Somebody said a bit more colour.
I'm going to say who sent you that.
So, oh, you jealous? Yep. Oh, I can't use that one. I was going to use some intrinsic colour straw, but it's clogged up. Strangely enough.
It's dried up in the nozzle.
It has.
It's shocking.
It has.
Another serious question from Grandpa Joe. He says, any tips on freehanding and even taper over about 6 inches?
Freehanding, yes.
Set your tool rest to the taper you want. Follow it.
I shall demonstrate for you. Let's just say that's the taper. Yeah. And let's just take a bowl gouge. Don't start here, because let's just say you want to end up sort of here. If you start here, you've got a terrific amount of wood. So nibble away, and again, make sure that your bevel is pointing where you want to go. So you can lock here, if you should so wish. So you start. All I'm doing is following the rest. And as you can see, it's virtually parallel with the rest. Virtually. My only excuse is I haven't turned for a while, but I'm using my finger.
Well, that excuse is wearing thin.
Oh, God. I haven't
It'll
finished
last
using
another
that
2
excuse
years.
yet, let me tell you. If I take my time.
Anthony Green says, ask you a question, Mike. He says, when you said earlier you weren't a big fan of tulip wood,
Yep.
he's interested to know the reason why.
The reason I don't like tulip wood very much, it's a bit soft. It's very absorbent. And I'm not a great fan of it. I prefer harder woods anyway. It's okay, but I just find it a bit of it's not one I would actively go out and buy loads of. That's just me, of course.
It's part of the popular family, and it can.
It's a personal thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a very good wood to practice your skew on, because it's a bit like pine in that respect. So if you want to do some planing cuts with your skew, tulip wood is a good wood. That's a bit too high. Even I need it lower than that. Just to do a planing cut as a practice. It's not actually round there, but the bits that are, you can get a nice. See that there? That one. I wonder. I thought it was a knot.
It's just not round yet.
It's not round. It's just not round.
Not square, yeah.
Not round.
So yeah, in answer to the original question, follow your tool rest. You don't have to. You can do it. You can do it without it, but obviously then you've got to concentrate a bit more. And I'll just see if I have the ability to follow that without the tool rest being on a tilt. Again.
So the woodwork learner, Mike, wants to know how long it takes you to come up with all the excuses you use, and do you have a book that you keep them in?
No, it's all in my head.
We were
it's the ones I've used for years.
YouTube, not on YouTube, on with Mike on a chat yesterday for about 37 hours setting up for this. So
that's true, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'd like to also, everybody that's watching, Pete Ravenscroft. Pete Ravenscroft is an absolute brick. He is, I said brick. He has in actual fact spent many hours tutoring me, teaching old dot new tricks, but we got through it. And also thanks to Brian and Mark, who's not with us tonight, for just coming on, doing their own thing, but being there so we could set this up. So, okay, I'd like to big shout out to these lads.
Yeah.
I'm saying that because I hope they're not too nasty later on, you see. Okay, so
well, I'm going to plug my new business on the back of your infamy and notoriety.
Yeah, go on then.
Woodturners.uk. I just chucked a link in there. Any UK turners that are interested in the website, go and have a look at that site after Mike's finished, like Wednesday or whatever, whenever he finishes.
I have one good site, guys. Jump in.
Yeah, it is great, and
I've got one as well.
I have as well, but it's not up yet. I haven't had a chance to do it.
Oh, no. Tardy.
Oh yeah, well, it was
no turning. Can't even be bored setting up his website. I don't know. Yes, typical Welshman.
Well, it's been off on the 6th since November. I mean,
I have. I've had 3 months off. It's not good. It's not good.
Yeah. You've been earworming all the time.
This is a brand new idea. Some friends have set up. I've got a few on there that have been used for testing purposes. Thanks very much, guys. But it is there if anybody's interested.
And it is great. It is good. And very intuitive as well.
Benjamin says, question.
Yeah,
everybody in the chat, he says, can we trust what Mike says?
No.
I mean, he's not even an approved tour.
No.
It's not a badge.
But.
To be honest, Mike's not really approved for anything, really. I mean,
he's got 2 of them in the earworming. So.
The only thing approved about Mike is the school he went to.
But I am a fully paid member of RAT.
Oh, so you are right now.
Okay.
Yes, yep.
That's the Register of Amateur Turners.
That's it.
So there, Ben. No, I got to stick it back up there again now.
Not a member of that.
No, very few people. Everybody's a member of that, surely.
You got into trouble the last time you showed that.
I did. But do I care? No. Do I
No.
care? Okay, so while we've got that spindle on, does anybody want anything else to be demonstrated with regards to, or can any of the earworms say, can I do that? Can I do this as far as roughing down is concerned, shaping? And don't say captive rings, Joseph, because I'm not doing that tonight. I could do a captive ring, but I think people would be bored silly. Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Oh, you're not going to do a captive.
No, I'm not doing a captive ring. Right.
Joseph King has just joined the debate. He says, my go-to tool is a round nose scraper, especially for bowls. One tool, start to finish.
Nothing wrong with a scraper. If you get a good finish and you're happy with it, you get a good shape. There's a guy called Reed Gray, or he's also known as Robo Hippie. Take a look at his website, take a look at his YouTube channel. That guy used to be, I don't know if he still is, used to be a production bowl turner, and 95% of his bowls were done with scrapers. And what that man can't do with a scraper ain't worth knowing.
Talking of scrapers, Steve Robbins asks.
Yeah.
He's got a 1-inch French grind scraper.
Yeah.
Can he turn into a negative rate scraper? And if so, what angles do you recommend?
Again, to be honest with you, I should imagine that's a fairly beefy one. Try it just with what I call a 20-degree or 25-degree relief. Just relieve the top. So where you've got your scraper there, you've got your angle, and I've got a little tiny relief on that one. Okay, it doesn't even have to be that big. If you just take the top edge off a little bit and see how you like it, and see how it works before you go full hog. My favourite grind is 35-35 for a negative rate scraper, but it doesn't last very long. This one is I think it's 60 with a 25 relief. That has a bit more longevity. But
I use 60.
I think the rule of thumb is if you don't go over 90 degrees.
Correct.
The combined angles.
Yes.
Then it works correctly.
Yeah. The only thing with a negative rate scraper is that it's a little bit more user friendly. And I mean, if you use a scraper correctly, if you put a scraper on a 45-degree angle, it won't scrape. You'll raise a shaving, because any sharp edge at 45 degrees will raise a shaving. But it does take practice. The negative rate scraper is a really easy tool to use. It's an easy tool to sharpen. The scrapers, yes, in earlier question about using diamond cards, I quite often use a diamond card on the scrapers, yes, just to raise the burr.
Just one thing, just to let you know, you're going on a bit. The Yorkshire Get said his mic's still talking.
Oh, Glyn.
This is a bit odd because Glyn knows Mike quite well, so he knows he never shuts up.
Yeah, good evening, Glyn, and goodbye. Thanks for coming. It's always a pleasure to see you. Always a pleasure to see you going. On the roughing down side of things, and this really was inspired by Brian, my good friend Brian J. Usby. No, if you're roughing down a log, okay, and I'm going to put this on to show the one time that really a spindle roughing gouge maybe not the best selection, purely for not safety, but for a more enjoyable experience, let's put it that way. So that it's not as bendy a log as it could be, but what I'm going to try and show you is that if you use a spindle roughing gouge on this, yeah, okay. If you insist. Right. So there's the log. All right. And this is just it's just for a demonstration. Let's go to that one and go to that one where it's in the top there. Okay. So make sure it's not touching. And you can see the ghosting there. But if I'm using my spindle roughing gouge, you can hear it. It's got it's bouncing around. It'll do the job. And that is one of the great advantages of using stem drives, stem centers, because don't forget this hasn't got a proper hold because it's not square there. But I just wanted to show the, hang on, let's go in there. Because what happens is if you get a catch of the stem center, it'll just loosen its moorings. So the idea is not to get a catch. So you can understand. Well, let's go a bit slower, just for the point. So it's bang 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 all the time. Okay, so it's not really the best tool for the job. Bolt gouge. You can see how much easier. There's the high points. Get rid of the high points. I would be going faster. Okay. And the other way of doing it, not just running across like this, just using the left wing in this case, because I'm going from right to left. It's not a
Can we
problem.
switch to tailstock view, Mike?
You what, mate?
Can we switch to the tailstock view? I think we'll get a better view that way.
Yeah, okay. That one there?
No, not that one. The other one.
Or the middle one? That one?
That's the one.
Yeah, okay. So where we've got the undulating pieces, you've got to get, obviously you've got to get a bit of bounce. Get rid of the worst. But it's a much better experience. Now what I tend to do is this. If I'm working from, let's go this way. If you do a series of scooping motions. So you can see my body working.
Yeah, we see it, fine.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing, I'm starting over here and I'm just working in a series. I'm taking a nice shaving, getting rid of a lot of wood, and when you've got a log like this, that is, and I would use my 1/2 inch as well for a bit more stability, but this is just a 3/8, which is more than up to the job. So what I'm doing is making a series of, and then you can go across. That. And then from here,
Todd said Mike is full of it today, as usual.
who said
Good
that?
information, that is.
So,
Joseph said, when taking the bark off, is that
Yeah.
a peeling cut?
could be. No, it's not a peeling cut. No, it's
It's a planing cut.
It's a planing cut. But the point I'm making is that for that sort of an operation, where you're doing this, you're working your way through a series of steps, and it's a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable than having this happen each time you hit a bump. So again, that's just another take.
That's a nice piece of cherry there, isn't it?
It is, yes. I shall be keeping that.
Can we have a quick vase out of that in a minute?
Yeah, I could do that in a minute. Not a problem at all.
I think we could have had a signature goblet out of that.
We could do. There's a lot of things we could do.
Yeah, goblet would be good. I just want to see a bit of hollowing, really.
Yeah, I've got to see some hollowing now. So what I've got here is a piece of...
Promises.
I think it's acacia. Okay. So I'm going to put... I've already put a... Let's go to the overhead. That one there. Yes, I think that's the one. So what I'm going to do now is just get rid of the chuck step drive. Put in...
Doug Miller has joined us. Hi, Doug.
Hello, Doug. Good evening and welcome, sir. This is where the eyes deceive me. No, they don't. That's good. And just so you know, full of excuses. I think it was Ben saying how many excuses I've got. I'm getting used to these bifocal safety glasses where I've got a small area when I look down because I can see distance, but reading is not so easy. Well, I can't read anyway, so that's not a big deal. Okay, so we'll have to move all this rubbish from here. Where are we going to put it? Excuse me, going off camera for a minute. Just move
Michael
that.
McHugh has joined us. Good evening, Michael.
Good evening and welcome, sir. Okay, so hollowing. a lot of people seem to have a problem with end grain hollowing, and there are various ways of achieving hollowing. We're not going for finesse here, we're just going through the methodology. One
Stephen
way
Woodjuice joined us. He said, "Hi everyone, I'm glad we've got a right tool on the job."
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. So we're going to do with the hollowing. There are, as I say, many ways of hollowing. You could take a scraper, forget the fact that it's negative rake, and you could do your hollowing with a scraper if you should so wish. You'd normally face the front off, but don't worry. And you literally start to hollow. Okay. So we start to hollow, you can use a scraper. I don't spend time on that because I don't use a scraper for that. This is a 3/8 spindle gouge. There are two ways of, you can either do the back hollowing this way, and I'm not going to go too deep, too wide for a reason. You can go, that's right, isn't it? Actually, I could come in a bit
Question,
there.
Mike, would you recommend this 22 or 32 mil step center if somebody's just about to buy one? As a first one.
That's the one I've got. I'll just bear with me a second.
Personally, I'd recommend the 22 because it's more useful.
Yeah, I think this is 22. Yeah,
That's what I bought first.
Yeah. That's the only one
If
I've.
you want to do something big later on, then
Yeah.
by all means, get the other one as well. But I think the 22 is the most useful if you're buying the first one.
Yeah, that's the one I've got. 22 mil, and I've had that for, I don't know, 10 years maybe, and I haven't had a need. There are occasions I got it done with a bigger one, but it's not very often.
Yeah, that's what I think. There are occasions, but you get by.
Exactly. So what I'm going to do here is do a depth hole. The reason, if I can see what I'm doing, the reason being is that I want to do other back hollowing as well, which I was inspired by Richard Raffin. And when I had
Go on, Terry, read out Ben's comment.
All I'm doing is pushing in for a depth hole, and that gets rid of the slow wood. Just go to there for now. Okay. Now, as I say, you can do a push cut. Let's go down a bit. You can hollow with a push cut, just like you would a bowl. Let's get rid of that.
Just to let you know, Ben says I don't think he don't think Mike gets the respect he deserves personally. I don't understand why people talk so highly of him.
I like that. I must remember. I resemble that remark. Yeah. Okay, so you can do your push cut like you would a bowl, and I don't want to go too wide here for a reason. And you can, and I think Pete'll agree with me, 2.5 to 3 inches with a 3/8 spindle gouge. Then you start to get a little bit of vibration because it's a narrow tool. It's not it's not meant for that, but you can quite easily go 2.5 to 3 inches on your back hollowing. The tool I tend to use for I'm back hollowing is not the parting tool. It is my 1/2 inch spindle gouge because it's got a bit more weight to it. Now, this is this could go really haywire because I've only done it 2 or 3 times and I don't know if one of you lads can find a link for Richard Raffin's YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'll have a look.
He's just put up a series of videos which are really helpful in demo 10-minute 12-minute videos, not 2-hour jobs like mine, and the back hollowing method I'm going to show you now, I have only tried it twice, but I've got the theory. It needs practice. It is a very effective way of getting rid of wood on pieces like this, a box, goblet, whatever, but it does require practice. So I'll go back to that one again. When we back hollow normally, we're just using the left part, just to the left of the nose, and we put in and just swing out. Okay. Let's get rid of the tail stock. Excuse me. Off camera. Move that back. That's better. Okay. Now, the proper back hollowing method is this. Now, this could go, as I say, stand well back. Where what I'm going to show you is that you go in on a push cut, and then you lift the handle. Sorry, lower the handle, lift the cutting edge, and roll. And you're actually cutting then, as you're pulling out, you're using the edge of the piece as a fulcrum, as well as the tool rest, obviously, for stability. But you're actually cutting on the top wing on that way, and then you go back in and you do that. That's the theory.
Says, viewers, be prepared to be amazed or very, very scared.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm in second slip.
So we go in like so, and then come in and start to bring out and in. As you can see, I'm not very adept at it, but it is an effective way. So we're basically cutting both ways. Now, the reason I'm actually getting an undercut there, or start it, you want to keep this entry hole as narrow as you can for as long as you can. As you start to go deeper, you'll have to widen it. You just widen it a bit, but you need that to pull against, okay? So bearing in mind, and this is not because I'm clever, I understand what I've got to do, which I couldn't do before. And I'm trying to show you now. So you're going in as a push cut, then you lift the edge. No, I'm not getting the cut there. Hang on. There, you can see I'm getting a cut there and back down. Turn it. Getting it up there.
So for the chat, I've just popped a link in for Richard Raffin's latest video there if you want to go over and have a look at that when Mike's finished.
So that is a way of getting rid of a lot of wood. And then when you want to widen here, you can literally just you can either do a backstroke or you can do whatever you like to the shape you want. And the reason I'm not going any deeper is there's no need, but that is the Richard's video was the first video I've seen that actually made it click with me. I've tried it many times and I've had absolutely no luck at all. But when he explained what you need to do, it is a very effective way of doing it. I still prefer the moment what I call the back hollowing, just doing this, because that's what I've used for years. But it's nice
very
to know.
Worryingly, Ben has asked a very serious and sensible question.
Yeah, I don't believe
Ben?
that. Somebody
Somebody else has got Ben's account, I think.
That's rubbish. I think
why
if you...
is a 6mm Hope carbide so much more effective at removing material than a spindle gouge? It seems like the geometry is roughly the same.
No, it's because it's, number one, it's carbide. That little chap there, that little 6mm cutter, even on a 19mm bar, and I think Brian's got the 19, haven't you, as well?
I have, yeah.
Very effective piece of kit. I'll just go to the overhead. I do use, I'm talking, the reason I'm not using this is because it's for the turner with less experience who is going to have traditional tools.
Yep. Somebody who's just got a starter set, probably.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Got a lathe in the butt, a 6-set starter kit.
And the thing is,
also
you don't get a Simon Hope one and a starter kit, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
You can use the Simon Hope one for
A lot of things.
hollowing out a saucer depth, but it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
The spindle gauge is the tool that you've got, and you've learned to do it with that first.
It is a very,
Agreed.
very effective tool. And the thing is, with it, you can do basic shaping, and because it's dished, because the actual cutter is dished, you're actually raising a shaving. You're not scraping. You can see there, I'm raising a shaving, not scraping.
Stephen the wood dude suggests that it removes wood quicker because of the small surface area equals less friction.
Could be.
I know.
Um,
Certainly removes the stuff quick.
I think it could be the design of the cupped cutter that it cuts is razor sharp.
Yep.
It's all relative. My
the thing is, though,
closed cup circle cutter will take a 1 millimeter, 1.5 millimeter thick shaving.
Yeah.
Look, when you're hollowing, and that obviously removes wood very quickly.
Yeah.
That's downside of that is it tends to be quite a rough cut. So you can close it down to a finer shaving to get a finish on it.
If you're talking about hogging out wood, I wouldn't totally agree with what you just said. I don't know who it was who mentioned it about the small cutter. I agree with the theory, but if you take it, this is a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. I can take a cut from that, from just left to the nose, to literally a 1/16 of an inch from that edge there. So there's more surface area there, but I'm actually cutting something like a 1/2 inch. I'm raising a 1/2 inch shaving. So the surface area on an edge doesn't really come into it, in my opinion, because obviously the more of the edge that you present to the wood, provided you can control the tool when you do that, you will raise a bigger shaving. We're not talking about finish here, we're talking about just hogging wood. But for the size of the cutter, I've got the 8mm and the 10mm as well, but my go-to one is the 6mm. Because it's so easy to use and it takes so much. It's frightening, actually, how much it takes, to be honest with you. But again, I get a lot of pleasure out of using traditional tools for as much as I can. If I'm doing a project and I want to get it done, then I'll use the tools that I've got. I'll use Simon's all the time for hollowing, but I like practicing the traditional hollowing as well. So.
Dave, just as you're saying, really, it's basically a personal preference to what you want to use there. And Dave Oatley come on and said he bought a Simon Oak one, as he feels more comfortable with that rather than a spindle gauge.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Absolutely fine.
It is easier to use.
Yes, it's like when people say
up to about 3 inches of depth. My go-to is the spindle gauge.
Yeah, me too. Purely because it's there. You've shaped the piece. You've got it. Yeah. I do like the 3/8 spindle, and I won't. You can drill a hole with a 1/2 inch spindle gauge, but I want to drill a depth hole. I'll always use my 1/2 inch spindle gauge, and I got a drill and so on, but I don't bother with that. For 2 to 3 inches, I'll always use a spindle gauge and plunge that in. But it's what works for you. We've said this before. This is the problem while my lives go on, because I stop and answer questions and the earworms are really contributing, and it's really quite an pleasant experience, actually, and I'm getting a bit annoyed about that.
Right. CP has just said he's a cheeky little so-and-so. There are 4 elderly gentlemen on screen now, Wooddude. Are they, Rob?
Stephen said, "Okay, I'm Hank Marvin here. So if the elderly gentleman doesn't appear soon, I'll go to eat. I've got to go to eat." Well, there's no elderly gentleman here.
No.
Stephen, you can carry on and have a 3-course meal. Mike will still be rambling at the end of it. You know what he's like.
Yeah. I can't deny it. But at least when I do a live, I don't do mundane things like bowls.
Oh, here we go.
And colouring, and I could do some texturing on this if you want.
How about goblets with thick bases, Mike?
Oh, no. No. Go to the
goblet with convex bases.
Right. Let's pretend this is a goblet. Okay.
No, never.
No, it's one of my goblets.
Could be so it's still in one piece.
That's true. I forgot about that. Right, let's just pretend for a minute that hang on, let's turn the speed up a bit. Okay, let's just pretend that this is a goblet.
So Stephen Wooddude said, "Sorry, I had to refresh it. Now I'm back to track now." I think he might have been watching your opening.
Okay, now let's just have a very short. A very short, stubby. Oh, it's all right. This is not a goblet. This is a demonstration of base design.
What's in it? I thought it was an egg cup. Dave Oakley says there's a 3-part goblet coming up.
No, there's only 2-part because he's got to have it overall.
I don't like that.
Benjamin says that's what I
didn't
love
know
about
that
the
either.
Woodturning community. People of all ages, from quite old to very old to, in Mike's case, super old.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to do business with you. Okay.
And Terry Bartlett says we need some masking tape instruction.
Not a problem.
Not in this channel, you're not going to get it.
No, you won't get that. No,
He's banned from using masking tape in public.
Actually, here we are. Look.
Oh no!
See? Oh, that's the way you do it. Okay.
You've done it again.
See, look, it keeps it there.
Switch the lathe on and see what happens.
Yeah.
The rest gets ripped into the work.
Yeah. No, it won't.
And have it tightened up.
There we go. See, it won't move. Won't move. Safe as houses.
Dave Rothwell says, is Mike going to turn the goblet into a stick?
No. I'll tell you what, Dave. I'll wave my magic wand when you come over again next year, and I'll turn you into a stick. Take that.
Turn it with a stick.
Yeah, look, we're turning with revolving thing. No, the reason I've got my half-inch gouge now. I just want to get rid of a lot of wood.
A nice skate bike then, right?
Yeah, the reason I'm getting the skate in is that I just want to hurry up. Taking too much wood.
But Pete, did you hear what Mike just said there?
Yeah.
Mike, hurry up in the same sentence.
Well, we know it's
something went wrong there.
Right.
So, Brian, so
He's
far
not
this
doing
page
bad,
is looking
really.
worse than yours.
He's removing quite a bit quite quick.
Yeah. I'm just doing this just to show base design.
Alright, okay. Obviously, we're going to make a nice convex.
Okay, now
base.
let's just forget the actual shape of the goblet, because that's rubbish. Now we're going to do a very stubby stem.
Chalice then.
Just get a little bit more shape on it.
Grandma Rooftube has just
Okay.
said, Benjamin, there are a few
Okay.
70-plus wood turners,
Now,
but they come with experience.
let's talk. Do we like? Hang on. Do we like stems, bases that go like that? In other words, they are flat.
Todd from Glen Cove Woodwork says, and to think we could be watching the 4-hour Super Bowl pre-game show instead.
Who said that?
Todd at Glen Cove.
Well done, Todd.
Mike has actually turned down a contract for doing that show. He said 4 hours wasn't long enough.
Oh, right you are. Right, Brian. Down to you.
Yes, mate, what?
Down to you now, mate. Now, give me your design for the base.
The base?
Yeah.
Direction.
Okay.
Brian's stuff like.
I'll save you the hassle. And this is Brian's.
Because I mean, my speciality is roll top rims, not bases.
Right. Okay.
Always the boy who said, is it going to be a roll edge goblet?
Yeah.
No, I'm not turning it, so it probably won't be.
We're gonna have a roll. Hang on, get rid of the wood there.
Based.
We're gonna have a roll.
Goblet.
We're gonna have a rolled edge base.
Oh, look at that! It's going to have a foot on it now.
See, now, to me, that looks a bit clumpy.
It is.
Yeah, to Brian.
Thin and curl out.
Look. So there's your base. Now to Brian, that is art.
That's absolutely.
Okay.
No comment.
And if you want to roll it completely.
I'm going to have to get one of my goblets down here so that I can defend myself.
There you are. That's Brian's idea of a base. Yeah. I'm
you're actually probably right, Mike.
Yeah. To me,
I think that's a lot thinner.
A base.
Right in thin.
Should be more like that. It should go in nicely and
even more in, I would do.
Oh, so would I.
Oh, you mean so it should be concave then, rather than convex?
Really?
Is that what you're trying to
Yes, it should be. Or even go really stupid. I don't know if I can do this after no practice.
Benjamin, I am depressed.
I think it was Ben.
Indeed it was not.
Yes, off to Starbucks. He says, anybody want anything? We can't get it for you, but do you want anything? No, thanks, Jeff. I'm on the beer. I'm good.
Yeah, I drop a red wine here, Jeff.
Right. So there, I know what we can do now, you see, is just use your scraper if you want to. Just to do that.
Did you just use that to please Joseph there, did you?
All right. Or you could use anything. You could use anything you like, basically.
See, my view on bases.
I like it. This too big.
When I look at a wine glass, a glass wine glass.
Yeah.
And I look at it from the side. Because of the thickness of the glass, I get a shaded bit on the very edge of the base.
Yeah.
Because it's thick.
Yeah.
So to replicate that, I tend to put a slight step on the very edge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only 1.5, 2 mil.
Yeah.
Then I go in and concave it around to come up to the stem.
Yeah.
And I think, although that isn't how the wine glass is actually shaped, that's what I see when I look at it. So that's what I try to copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same as I usually put a fillet at the top, although a wine glass doesn't have a fillet, it's got that thicker bit of glass and it looks like it's got a fillet.
Yeah, that's another design I've been working on. No, anyway, I'm only kidding. Brian knows I love him. But no, it's and just for the people that are here, okay? I haven't done a two-piece goblet for a while. There we go.
Yay!
So we have a two-piece goblet. Okay.
Now doing it and turn it on at 3,500 revs.
Yeah.
Stand well back.
As if I've never done that before either. Oh, okay. So, no more questions, I assume, on spindles. Is there anything that anybody else would like to hear on spindles?
Joseph would like to see his captive ring. Obviously, he hasn't typed that yet, but I know he does.
He does. I'm going to have to go get something to eat. He's starving.
If I had time, I'd do a quick. I would do that. I'd do a quick captive ring, if you wish.
Wordwork learner Andy says the only foot on that, Brian, will be when Mike stamps on it.
I could get really upset with this, you know.
Did you? Actually,
no, not really.
There was a semi-serious moment just now.
No.
Did you notice that Mike hit that stem with a hammer and it broke?
Yeah.
But it didn't release from the chuck because his tenon was that good.
Yes. That just proves how good the tenon was. But and the reason I'm putting a bowl on is just to show that where I've said previously that the bowl gouge, 3/8 bowl gouge, is quite a flexible tool. You can use it on spindles as well as a bowl. Okay. A spindle gouge, however, 3/8 spindle gouge. See that new shape parting tool, 3/8 spindle gouge there. The 3/8 spindle gouge, however, because of its lack of beefiness, is not such a good tool to use on a bowl. The only time I'd ever use that is possibly to just, even then I might not, is if you've got a mortise and you've got a ring foot, what I call a ring foot around the mortise, and you want to get a nice crisp transition from the bowl, and that you might go in with that. Or to clean up the mortise itself, you might go in with a 3/8 spindle gouge just to clean up the bottom. I very rarely do, but I've seen it done, and it can get in there where a bowl gouge has a bit more difficulty.
Royce the boy's got a good question. He said, what type of spindle gouges are there, or how many types?
There are lots. Do you mean size-wise? I have... Oh, that's a 1/2 inch spindle gouge. That's a 1/2 inch spindle gouge. I very rarely use it. It's more of a continental, very shallow flute. It's more of a continental design. The continental spindle gouges have very shallow flutes, do they not, lads? Similar to that.
They do, yeah.
The thing with the spindle gouge is mainly the difference is the size. 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, and the
grinds, of course.
And of course, whether you have, I mean, all mine have got fingernail grinds. When they come, that's another thing. When they come to the manufacturers, quite often they have a straight over grind, which I've got on a bowl
Back on
gouge.
screen a minute, Mike.
Yep. There you go.
Right. Don't know if you can see this. This is the Ashley Isles spindle gouge, and it's actually cut down lower here, which gives you a smaller bevel here. Now this one's a weird grind on it because it's got double grind on it, but this is a Sorby spindle gouge. And as you can see, the bevel on there, if it was straight, is a lot bigger, and that makes this Ashley Isles one work almost as well as a smaller gouge. So I can do things with this that I would normally be going for a 1/4 inch spindle gouge on.
Yeah.
So there is differences, and they're subtle, and you kind of have to get used to it. It took me quite a while to get used to the Ashley Isles one, but it's different. Once you're used to it, then it comes into its own. But the Continental is thinner again. I haven't got one here. I used to use one quite a lot, but it wore out and didn't get replaced. So the Continental one is very thin. But of course, the trouble with being thin is if you get a bit far over the tool rest, it vibrates a lot.
Yeah.
So you pay your money, you take your choices with it, because they're all slightly different to use.
And, yeah,
but it's all familiarity. Once you get used to a tool, then it starts to behave itself properly.
Yes.
The Continental roughing gouges are almost like spindle gouges as well.
Yes. Yeah.
They look like, they're inch wide, but they're a very shallow flute.
Yeah.
Straight across.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Continental ones are forged as well, so they're
forged, yeah.
Different design.
Seth from Brickhouse Chapels has joined us. Good evening, Seth.
Hello.
Oh, Seth.
Good evening, Seth, and welcome. How are you? Okay, so if we cut back to that one there, I can make that a bit smaller actually. Actually, I don't think you need that, do you? Just need that, really.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right. Okay. So what I was going to say is the flexibility of the bowl gouge is really quite large, whereas the flexibility of the spindle gouge is a bit restricted, and it's basically because of its size. So we've got a bowl here. Let's go to the overhead for a minute. We've got a bowl here, and obviously it needs truing up, etc., etc. Now, if I use and I haven't done this before, so it could work, it could not. But if I use my spindle gouge, 3/8 spindle gouge, I can still do it, but it's really, you've got to be very, very gentle with it. If I use
just out of shot, Mike.
Oh, right, okay.
Sorry.
No, thank you. That's what I pay you for.
Lovely.
Right, okay.
Hey,
So we'll
who
do that.
mentioned pay?
Oh, sorry.
Extortion amount.
I was lying. Yeah. So I've got the 3/8 spindle gouge here, and I'm trying to round the edge, and it'll do the job, but I can feel it. You might not see it. It's bouncing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just feels
I've
like
got
it's
the weight
too
in the
light for
tool,
the
is it?
job, doesn't it?
But it will do the job. It will, but it will not do it very well. If I take my ball gouge, however, it's not a problem.
Grandma Ruth says Terry was asleep during Steve's live, but not now.
Never been asleep.
Oh.
I believe you, Ruth.
Actually, I did fall asleep during it because he bored me.
I believe Ruth.
Okay.
All the sand and polishing.
So I don't recommend using a spindle gouge on a bowl for anything other than fine tuning of the foot. And by the same token,
Or maybe taking the tenon off, just the last little bit.
Yeah, the last bit of a tenons, the finer parts of it. But for the hogging out and definitely the taking out of the inside and shaping as well. And if I want to start to shape this, let's just see this again now. So we want to face off the edge. There's really no need to face off edges. It's only the face off the face to flatten it. The main reason is so you can get higher revs and it doesn't bounce around so much. But if I take my 3/8 spindle gouge on here,
basically.
Yeah, I can do it, but I don't know if the camera will pick it up how much that is moving.
Yeah, we can see it bouncing.
You've got the weight in the tool, have you?
No, that's what I mean. But if you take the spindle, take the bowl gouge, and drop your rest a little bit.
David Nichols joined us. He says, "Hello, everyone. I'm late."
Hello.
Hello, you're late.
Hello, late, David. And if I take my bowl gouge,
I just fucked it all up again.
I'm taking a much bigger shaving. I'm still getting a bit of bouncing, which you'd expect, but it's a lot less than with the spindle gouge. I mean, it's well out of flatness, as you can see. But if I'm trying to do that with a spindle gouge, as I'll do now, even when it's relatively flat, it's okay in the middle there because it's quite good there. But when it starts here, I don't think you can see my hand moving. It's really moving, and I'm not taking hardly any shaving compared to that with the bowl gouge. So the spindle gouge does have its limitations, and by the same token, we won't bother shaping the outside or anything. But let's say we want to start hollowing. Now, if I take my spindle gouge, I can do it, but believe me, I'm taking very small cuts, and I'm going to get into problems when I get further down into the bowl.
Can we see that from the end camera?
Yep.
As opposed to overhead.
Todd Glencoe said, "Is there a scheduled intermission for today's presentation?"
There's a half-time show coming up, Todd. Oh no, that's American football tonight. Sorry.
You get ice cream halfway through. We go down, walk down to the front and get an ice cream.
Grandma Ruth says that Terry's main hobby, apart from woodturning, is sleeping.
I believe. Far off it.
Yeah. Now, if I take my bowl gouge, my 3/8 bowl gouge, I've got much more stability. I can take a much bigger cut, and I can turn the speed up now anyway, just on 1,000 revs, and I can just go in there.
I'd just like to mention quickly, whilst Mike's busy, Mike does pay us with earworms for our services of tonight.
Extortionate, mate.
But only if you click that link at the top of the chat to buy me a coffee and chuck some cash in the pot. And Mike splits that with us. So if you feel you've enjoyed yourself tonight, go and buy him a coffee. If not, we don't care really.
Or a large brandy.
Do it anyway.
But we're not here for that. So what I'm really trying to say here is I go back to the 3/8 spindle gouge. Yes, you can use it. But when I start to get to the middle as well, being it's got a 45-degree grind as well, this hasn't got the stability. I'm starting to feel it now, and I'm riding the bevel. Everything's going as it should do, but I'm getting a lot of resistance there. Take the bolt gouge, and it just eats through it. Can't you tell I haven't turned a bolt 3 months? Okay, but I think the point has been shown that the bolt gouge, and somebody asked the question, I personally would buy a bolt gouge over a spindle gouge because it's got more flexibility. It gives you the opportunity to turn bowls if you should so wish, and it also gives you a lot of flexibility on spindles, not for the finer bits, but then it depends on the grind. I suppose I could put that to a 40-degree grind or a 35-degree grind if I should so wish, but it's a very, very flexible tool. And I reiterate this once more: that chappie goes nowhere near a bowl. Is my advice. I've heard people say, "Oh, it's okay." I always use my spindle roughing gouge to true up the edge because it's like a spindle. But why would you bother picking up a spindle roughing gouge when you're turning a bowl?
Especially as you demonstrated earlier, that a bowl gouge can be used on an uneven edge much more effectively than a spindle roughing gouge.
Exactly. So, I mean, why? The only reason is to buck the trend and to show how clever, how stupid you are.
It's just not designed for it.
Exactly. Because this thing here, the tang, is so narrow, the forces that a bowl exert on a tool are far different to that to a spindle. You've basically on a spindle just got the wood coming down on the edge, so it doesn't need to have a big tang here. But when you're doing this business, you've got forces coming down on there, which is going that way. You're off your bevel, if you like. You haven't got all that meat like you have when you're doing a spindle. It's just not designed for bowls. And to be honest with you, you could hollow out the inside to an extent of a bowl with a skew chisel. But why would you? Why would you do that? However,
Marcel, who obviously snuck in when I wasn't paying attention, I might have actually been watching Mike even.
Who was that?
Marcel Durrett.
Oh, yes.
He mentioned Richard Ruffin earlier. Watch his bowl demo. He uses a spindle gouge quite a bit, much to his surprise.
Yeah, a half-inch spindle gouge, however.
Richard Ruffin does.
Half-inch.
Richard Ruffin has wonderful tool control.
Yeah.
A bowl gouge.
Years and years of experience
is the one that I would recommend for anybody. Any turner of lesser experience. Don't even bother with a spindle gouge on a bowl because it's hard work.
I think you'll find as well, with all due respect, Marcel, that the spindle gouge that Richard is using is a half-inch spindle gouge, and if you look at the design of it, I think it's what's the not true? Is it True Cut?
I think it is, yeah.
Possibly, yeah. You will find that the True Cut have a very long bar and a very small with regards to length of flute, so you've got more stability. And the thing in the States now as well, it's passing on to the States to the bowl turners, where they have interchangeable tips. So what happens is you've got a solid where you've got a flute on this bowl gouge, for example, although it's been used a bit. the flute wouldn't start till there. So all that is solid bar, and then you've got an end that fits on the end with a flute and your grind whatsoever, and that gives more stability as well. So, but again, the major thing with Richard is that he has got 35, 40 years worth of experience, being a production turner and demonstrator and so on and so forth, and teacher. And he has, when he was demonstrating the back hollowing that I shamefully tried earlier on, he himself hadn't used it for years, but he still did it extremely well, obviously, because that's all he used years ago. He used to make scoops, and that's what he made his living, making scoops. So anyway, the thing is that certain tools, as I say, have a bit more flexibility, or a lot more flexibility than others. But to be honest with you, my opinion is use the tool for what it's designed to be used for. And I don't think...
Glen Cove has said, is this what those famous 12-hour cricket matches are like? Todd, they're not 12 hours. Proper cricket matches go on for 5 days. But Mike, being Welsh, doesn't actually understand the rules of cricket either. So
neither do I. Pointless, boring game.
Like you're Scottish as well.
Pointless.
Mind you,
Ireland, what do you expect?
After the situation with the rugby in the Six Nations, I don't think we know how to play rugby either, let alone cricket.
Don't talk. Scotland will beat today as well. Don't start.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh dear! Oh dear! R.I.P.
I'm in more.
Yes.
Marcel Duret has come back on and says it was also a very well worn gouge with a very short flute.
Yeah, but I think yes.
Was roughing, so that would give it more stability.
Yes, it would do.
The fact that the spindle gouge is designed for spindles and the bowl gouge is designed for bowls, it gives you a good clue to what you should be using, guys.
Yeah, but the reason for today is to say that in actual fact the bowl gouge, and I've said it time and time again today, I know it's boring, the bowl gouge is a much more flexible tool than the spindle gouge, but when you've got to fine work, the spindle gouge is necessary, it's and I don't think there's anything else actually that I can, unless anybody wants me to show anything, any spindle apart from captive rings, because people will get bored with that. But
doesn't like captive rings. Oh, I can't do.
I used to do.
Captive rings are illegal.
I used to do them a lot, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a bit like off-center turning, isn't it? You do it. I don't really like the aesthetics.
Done it, finished.
I don't like the aesthetics of off-center stuff.
So
okay.
I've got Dave Oatley has come back and says, but the good news, Brian, is that England won their game. Yeah, but the even better news is, Dave, they didn't win the Calcutta Cup.
No.
That's all I've got to say.
I'm afraid, it's. I'd rather Out of Mongolia win the rugby than England. Not that I'm prejudiced.
Anthony Green has asked, can you show the different parting tools you have?
Oh.
Yes, indeed. Well, the ones I've got here, I've got a couple I don't use anymore.
Next time for the captive ring.
That's a thin parting tool.
That's mine.
Pete has a rather large.
That's it. Yeah.
1 mil. A 10 mil round skew, which I use as a parting tool quite often. A 6 mil, which is a very useful tool.
I'll put mine back. Yeah.
3 mil, which is probably the most standard that most people see. And a 2 mil fluted parting tool. Notice it's wider, rather like the 1 mil. That gives it the stability and vibration resistance it needs to be that thin.
Roger Hunt says, can you demonstrate briefly the use of a Bedan?
I could do, but I have a Bedan. That started life as a Bedan, but I turned it into a wide parting tool.
Oh.
So
a beading and parting tool.
Yeah.
Well, Wesley Hannah asked the question: "Do you ever use a skew chisel to make a cove?" I know it's not
Yes.
the correct tool.
Yeah.
But I hate spindle gouges and I much prefer to use it.
You can do, yeah.
If you look at my last video that I did on the garden dibber, that's exactly what I did with the skewers. I made a cove in the handle.
I did as well.
Yeah.
If you want to see wonderful skew coves,
I'll show
watch
you
Les
now.
Thorne.
Sorry.
Watch Les Thorne, don't watch mine. He recommends it for very thin coves, and he does a great demo of that.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do a thin cove, but it can be done.
Yeah. What I would say is yes, you can, and obviously you can. But even Steve Jones, who is, in my opinion, the sort of holy grail of skew mastership,
yes.
Even he will use a spindle gouge for shallow, for small coves.
He does.
But he has the ability to use his 1-inch skew to do that. But he finds that obviously it's, again, horses for courses. It's the tool for the job. The biggest thing I think with, I'm not as adept as the skew of any of the guys here because I don't use it very often. But I find the basic methodology with the skew is the same as a gouge. You maintain your bevel contact, and what a lot of people do, because they're worried about it, they literally pull off the cut, if you like. So then they're not giving forward motion to the skew. So it needs to go forward, and you need to be going forward all the time. As soon as you don't, things start to happen and you get catches because it'll either the heel will dig in or the toe will dig in, or you start, coming off your bevel, whatever. You don't want to rub the bevel, you need to float it like you would with a gouge. Because when people say, oh, look at that finish, it's shiny, that's not a good finish. All you've done is burnish the wood. You've basically, a smooth finish from a skew or any tool will be smooth to the touch, but it won't be shiny. If it's shiny, you've been pressing too hard, and that happens on hardwoods a lot. If you do some like cocobolo or anything like that, teak or anything, if you're using a skew chisel or a gouge and you're doing, let's say, a round over, okay, and you get this wonderful shine, you think, oh, it's wonderful. All you've done is flattened the fibres and you've burnished the wood with the heel or with the bevel of the tool. So there, I was told that.
Ian Collison has asked a question there. He says, just so unrelated to what we're talking about, but it's, do you know if there's any woodturning fairs or big exhibitions this year?
Yes.
Is this in England you're talking about, Ian? Because
in England, I know that Makers Central, which is not just woodturning, that's supposed to be going ahead.
Newark.
And the Harrogate tool show is
November.
Supposedly going ahead in November.
And Newark is
Newark
March.
is going ahead in March.
The 12th of March. And
I think the chestnut tool one's going ahead, is it? Or not?
I believe the chestnut
weekender thing is
happening.
Weekender. Yeah, that should be going ahead too. That went ahead last year as well. It's a smaller event, so it's more likely to happen in bad times.
Yeah. Was the chestnut one on? Was that IRD?
No, the chestnut was live.
No, that was.
It was a live.
It was in.
It was a live thing.
Yeah, in
But
London.
restricted number and.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it did happen, and it will happen again this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
But as far as the UK is concerned, as far as wood turning is concerned, the two main shows, Harrogate being the biggest, is definitely going ahead, and Newark is not the baby brother, but it's a smaller event, but it's still very focused on wood turning. It's a spectacle, is a very diverse show. It covers a myriad of different things.
It's all kinds of makers, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a wonderful show, but it's not, for me personally, it is not focused enough because I'm a boy.
I think at the end of the day, you've got to look at the press because things in theory will be happening again this year.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
But nobody knows for sure what's coming around the corner.
I think the most likely one is going to be Newark because it's not far away. Harrogate is obviously going to go on, but you don't know how COVID is going to. Exactly.
Don't know what's going to happen between now and next week.
No.
Just have to keep an eye on the press.
Yeah, That's very true. Very true. Well, for those of you that are still left, I'd like to really...
There's 114 left.
Yes, I was going to say I'd like to thank you very, very much for turning up tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. It has not been my usual... It's been my usual format because I haven't stopped talking. But
This is true.
Yeah. But the next one I do, I don't know how long it'll be because I'm going back to work next week. Yeah.
Rain.
Yeah.
I just plugged Woodturners again UK with a link.
Yeah. Plug away.
Plug.
What day is it today? Sunday. Well, tomorrow night,
Yes.
Brian, you want to put your... are you on tomorrow lunchtime, Terry?
I'm indeed. I'm on
I am
8
on
o'clock
tomorrow
tomorrow
lunchtime,
night.
yes.
You're in
Terry's
tomorrow
on
lunchtime.
tomorrow. I can just quickly grab.
Tomorrow.
So you're back at work tomorrow, Michael? Or
No, I won't be back until at least Wednesday, maybe
does that mean we
Thursday.
have to put up with you on Terry's and Brian's then?
Well, definitely Terry's. I don't
Tomorrow?
know about the evening, but I'll
No,
definitely
he
do
wants
lunch.
Laura to go to Brian's.
I'll do the lunchtime. Yeah, well,
Well, I suppose
don't want to upset
we
you
can
too
cope with
much.
him once again, can't we?
Well, actually, what I'll
Yeah,
do,
he's quite easy to put up with, really.
I'll go back to work Friday, Brian, so I can make you Thursday lunchtime.
Oh no!
I'll tell him I can't go back. Sorry.
Tragedy.
Yeah.
I'm just
Okay.
getting my link. Hold on a second. I'll be with you in a second.
I can't say too much on air because ears might be listening.
BB Turning, Shay has asked
Hello, Shay.
a question. Where are the varifocal safety glasses available?
I got these on Amazon. What I'll do, if I remember, Shay, I'll send you a link
You got
in
your link,
Messenger.
Terry, or you want me to get it?
I'm just getting it now, actually. If I can.
All right, mate.
But these are brilliant,
Trying.
Shay. They really are good. But the bifocal bit, I don't know if it'll pick it up. It's just there. So you
I
have
can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is clear. Everything else is clear. They wrap around and they're to certain spec. And you just got to get used to that distance. They
Where
do
did you
them
get them, Mike? Sorry.
on Amazon. I can't remember. Yeah,
Okay.
but
There's my link for lunchtime, Mike.
okay, mate. That's Terry's link for tomorrow. So hopefully see you there.
I'll send you the other
but
link
you-
to come in.
Okay.
Stuart said he's missed most of this, Mike. He hope
Not,
it went well. And how are your eyes?
they're fine, thank you. They're fine. I just need reading glasses, that's all. But a quick note to Shay, they do them in various strengths. And when I read, yes, I can read, I use +2. But for this, I need 1.5 because I needed elbow. I'd clear an elbow.
Yeah.
It's a bit too near. I've got to be stooping if I use my reading glasses. So these are 1.5s, but obviously everybody's eyes are different. But yeah, they're good. They're very good.
Michael
Just
Stratton's just posted Newark in March has already been cancelled.
There you go.
Sorry?
There's one. Yeah.
Newark in March has already been cancelled.
You're kidding.
There you go.
What
Just like
Michael
that.
said. As I said, you've got to watch the press and hope.
Yep.
Well, I looked on Google. Funny enough, I looked on Google yesterday for Newark because I happened to be off, and I thought, oh, great, I'll be able to get up there. And it was on. So it obviously called it off today then.
Watch your press. That's all you can do.
Exactly.
So Mike Walt says another untruth. I'm pretty sure Newark will be on because it's only around the corner. So there we go. I bet you Newark is not on, but Harrogate will be on, and so we'll make a central because I said they wouldn't.
I could see it.
Yeah. Right then, guys. It's a world record for me, under 2 hours.
I know. I can't believe it. Just hang on for me. It's only 5 minutes to go.
Okay, well, hang on for. Yeah, Brian, I tell you
Let's
what.
have some rude questions for Mike in the chat, please.
Any rude
Yeah.
I'll keep
questions?
him going for another 5 minutes.
Yeah, any rude questions?
Ray Driver says, thanks, guys. A gentle and friendly couple of hours. It wasn't
Good.
supposed to be friendly.
No.
We were supposed to give Mike a hard time.
Thank you, Trevor. Appreciate it, mate. I missed Joseph's comment.
Stuart said, what is the deal with Mike and masking tape? Mike has
There's no deal.
officially been requested by all manufacturers of masking tape never to use it on a live again because he made such a mess of it. He just made it look so difficult.
Made the products look bad.
And they've all written to him and said, please don't ever do that again.
Well, it's not a case of please. I've actually got a court order against me using them in public.
Philip
Cease and desist order.
So Philip Heinhold says, "Hi guys, first time on, and I've really enjoyed the info and the crack."
Excellent. I'm glad. Thank you and welcome.
Good
Hope
man,
to see you.
Philip.
Hope to see you next time.
See you again, hopefully.
Yeah. No, I'm really, really humbled how everybody's turned up tonight. It was excellent, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. And I'd like to thank my earworms as well. Reluctantly,
I'd like to. You're welcome.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Pete. But I'm not going to say goodbye yet. We got another 5 minutes. I'm not allowed to go for the 2
you're
hour.
not allowed to go yet.
2 hour
till
mark.
9.
G&D ask, are you and Martin planning another double demo in the future? We were actually talking about this the other day, weren't we?
Yeah, well, funny enough, we did one last year for charity, but Martin hasn't been in touch with me either because he doesn't like me anymore or because he knows I haven't been turning. So
he's been a friend of yours for a while, though, hasn't he?
He's been many years, yeah.
Well, that's why he's not in touch with you then.
More than likely. I can't disagree with that, Brian.
No. That's why I said it.
Yeah. I've got to take this elastic off now because that was a bit posh, wasn't it? Elastic.
Yeah,
I've got to take off the elastic, you know. It works well. It does work well.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
See, these were designed, were they, for people doing what we do, bending like this? You're at a desk and that's it, you know. But yeah, it's brilliant. The missus wasn't too pleased, but she had to do the sewing. I suppose you did your own, did you, Brian?
I did, of course.
Back in a sec.
Don't rush, Terry.
Maybe you stole the elastic out of her knickers, Mike.
This is only an inch, mate.
Okay.
It's only an inch wide.
Stuart's got a good question for you, Mike.
Yes, Stuart.
So, are you using the Hampshire Sheen white embellishing wax on your beard now?
Yeah, I got rid of the black. Yeah, no, that's right. Yes, is the answer, Stuart. I am. And it's great. And when I want a bit of a shine, all I do is I just put my face up to the buffing wheel, and it gives a nice shine as well. And it's good in the rain.
Roger's leaving. He says, "Thanks, fellas. Until the next time. Good night."
Thank you, Roger. Good night. Take care.
Hey, Roger.
Thanks for coming.
Question from Rob CP. Apart from flying goblets, do you have a signature piece for demos?
No, not really. I mean, I'll turn anything badly.
Yeah.
But normally goblets. I mean, if a couple of IRDs I have done since COVID, people have just asked me to do goblets, you know. But I just think it's a bit boring after a while. But
how many do you do a week, Mike? Do you do giveaways or?
Sorry.
Do you sell or give them away, or do you do a certain shape?
I keep them.
Yeah, Mike's got sales in a gallery.
Yeah, but I've got one in the gallery actually, but it's not a goblet, it's a chalice. I don't, even when I'm turning back to normal, I don't do an awful lot of turning hour-wise because of my work, you see. Yep. I might spend 5 or 6 hours a week in the workshop.
My God, spend that today.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I was off with COVID, I was happy as a pig in poo because I was 4 or 5 hours turning day in, day out, you know. But of course, this time I haven't been able to turn. So, I haven't been able to put a gouge to wood, let's put it that way. But, yeah, I turn anything, Terry, but, you know, I sell a few things. I do a few commissions through people at work and word of mouth and so on and so forth, but I don't turn an awful lot, really. It takes me a lot longer.
Jamie Robertson wants to know. He said it was a good show. Cheers. Do you do any finishing? Do you do any on finishing?
I've got videos on finishing. Actually, that wouldn't be a bad idea, would it, really?
The next one's going to be a start to finish project, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, I can do that. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's a 5-hour job. Yeah. But I did a goblet. I did a chalice on not the last live, the last but one live. I did a chalice and finished it. But that, you know, yes, I do pieces from start to finish, but I just feel sometimes you get a lot of questions, and I've had a lot more questions now I've been off and sort of looking at social media, messages and so on. and a lot of it is basically for the newer turner, the turner with less experience. But yeah, we'll do a project on the next one, whenever it's going to be.
And Anthony Green is asking you it's a reasonably personal question, because everybody has their own, I suppose. When you buy wood and exotic types of wood, what supplier do you use?
Dare I say, I very rarely buy wood. When I have bought wood, exotics, things like Marley Burls, etc., I normally use Ed Oliver. You can use Yandles, there are loads of different places.
Yeah,
Go online. And they're all, I mean, the quality is pretty good from everybody now. It's a bit like a pub lunch.
Postage on heavy items being what it is.
It's expensive.
And also because you kind of want the businesses close to you to survive.
Yeah.
I always recommend
use local,
local if you can.
As local as you can, I agree.
That's what I try to do, use local.
Yeah, I totally agree.
If you can, I mean, if you can't get what you're looking for.
I would like to say, annoying as you are, it's blooming good to have you back live. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, I appreciate it. I'm embarrassed now. Sorry.
That's false modesty. Hey, stop it.
Oh dear. But
the Wood Dude says, I think Mike is one of the best looking female turners on YouTube. Oh no. Wait.
Thank you.
He's a guy.
Thank you. Not on a Saturday night. Wood Dude obviously knows. I've met you in that. Yeah. Wood Dude and I.
Seen you in a different light.
Yeah.
Woodwork Learner says Mike doesn't buy wood. He's got a balaclava.
Do you know what? On a serious note, I mean, I've been very fortunate over the years to get sent a lot of exotic wood from afar by subscribers as a thank you and so on, and I still haven't turned a lot of it. But I get so much wood, for me anyway, dropped off, or people say, "Oh, I've got this." I just take wood in, and I got a lean-to full of wood, and I'll be honest with you. The rate I turn, if I never had another bit of wood, I still wouldn't turn all the wood I've got here, But I very rarely buy wood, I must be honest. I've got a hell of a lot of yew that I had about 2 years ago, which is all sealed and drying, some really big stuff, and I can't wait for that to sort of get to what I turn in wetness, if you like. But yeah, I'll turn anything, But what I do enjoy doing is taking a bit of. Somebody mentioned pine on about tulip wood, and pine. One of the best woods, in my opinion, to learn tool control and finish is pine, because pine can be a lovely wood to look at. It's really some bold figure, very wide grained, obviously. But if you get a good finish on pine, that is an indicator that you're improving your tool control. You put a skew across it, you put your gouge across it, whatever, and you get a good, nice finish. You get some really nice finishes, and pine is a good tester, and it's cheap as chips.
So Alex of Wooden Things has asked a reasonably sensible question, just for a change.
Cool.
He says, I've been given 3 logs about 2 meters long, sycamore, I think.
Right.
What's the best way to dry it
out? Everybody will have their own idea. My opinion is, if you can, leave it as long a length as you can, because it will check at the end. Seal the ends and wait. And it's about 1 inch a year, but I mean, it depends how big your log is, obviously. But I've got some stuff out there that's as long as yours. I just leave it in the lean-to, because it's going to check at the ends. That means you've got a lot more usable wood when it does dry out. So that's my advice. Leave them as long as you can when you're drying them out. Seal the ends with either, a lot of people use anchor seal, I use PVA glue, and you can actually water the PVA glue down a bit so it seeps into the fibres. Yep. Give it a couple of coats of that. You could use wax. I've tried that, and to be honest with you, I don't think it's that effective, and it's a messy old job, that is, anyway. So PVA glue, or even a latex paint. You've got some old latex paint somewhere, use that just to slow down the drying process, because the moisture.
During COVID, I've been unable to collect bits of wood as quickly as I would normally do.
Mm-hmm.
People have asked me what sort of size to cut it into, because it can be left in the garden until I can get it.
Yeah.
And what I've been saying is I want it 1.5 times the diameter. That gives me a bit of checking room on the ends, because it's going to be months before I can pick it up.
Yep.
And I've got to give a shout out to Chestnut's End Seal, which I believe is very similar to American's Anchor Seal.
Right.
Because it's clean, easy, and quick to use.
Okay.
The other thing you got to remember.
It's not the cheapest way, but it's good.
If you are given long lengths of wood, say 2 foot in diameter, you can leave it as long as you can. But if you're Mike's age or my age, then you may not.
Yeah, this is it. I mean,
You
once you
might
get to
not
Mike's
live that
age,
long, yeah.
then
Well,
you can't go planting trees ready to harvest, can you?
it's like the surgeon said to me with my eyes. I said, "How long will they remain good sight?" He said, "Well, let me put it this way, Mr. Walt. They'll still be clear when you're long gone." So they'll outlive me. So, but yeah, as Terry says, cut them into short. If you're our age, you cut them into little bits like that because you use them. If you leave them like that, you'll never use them.
Cut the pith out the middle, make them into bowl blanks, and away you go.
Yeah. But don't forget, not everybody looks. I say everybody. I didn't mean you then, Brian. But a lot of people look at a piece of wood, let's say 2 foot diameter, and let's say 2 or 3 foot long. You know, think, oh, how many bowls can I get out of that? Well, don't forget, you can also get spindle blanks out of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, because spindle blanks don't grow on trees; they're cut from logs. Yeah, sorry, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, if you cut it properly, when you cut the pith out the middle,
yes,
the 2 bits on either side of the pith will become spindle blanks.
Exactly.
And then you've 2 bowl blanks either side of that, and then you've got the waste bit on the end.
And a little.
If you think about how you're cutting it, you'll get everything out of it.
A little tip, seriously, and I still do that now when I get big logs in or logs in. Get a Sharpie and look where you want to get your bowl, and draw on the end where you want the bowl. You've got a bowl out of that. You got think of the orientation, think of the grain before you actually put your chainsaw to it or however you're going to cut it. And you've got that, and then you could say, right, that square in the middle, that takes the pith out, and you've got the spindle blanks then you've got the bowl either side, you've got a spindle blank in the middle, and a spindle blank down that end as well. So, you know, it's there's a lot to be got out of a log if you think about it.
Jeff Roslin asked, is natural drying better than kiln, etc.? Kiln there's different types of kiln. I work a lot I do a lot of small spindle work, and I work a lot with planks that I get from a local timber yard, which is kiln dried, and it's grand. It works fine, but it's a bit drier than I would normally like to turn. I have a kiln of my own, and if I rough cut a bowl 1.5 inch thick-ish, I can get that dry in 6 to 12 weeks, depending on the type of timber, to the point that I want to turn it, which is, in my workshop, anything around about the 15% moisture level.
Perfect.
It's a variable question. If you go for a commercial drying, they tend to be a bit too dry.
But sorry to cut across you, Pete, but don't forget, you could buy kiln dried timber, and let's say it's 5% when you buy it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to end up, if it's in your workshop, it's going to end up at the moisture level of your workshop.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
And if you take it indoors, obviously indoors with central heating, etc., is drier. And, you know, if you're turning a box or whatever, my advice always is don't turn the lid to completion in your workshop. Take it in to the house. Don't put the lid on until it has dried. Then you could whip it out of your workshop, do the fine tuning, and then it'd be okay indoors, because it will swell when it comes out, because it's got to take on the moisture in the atmosphere, and when it goes inside, it's got to shrink, and quite often you get the lid stuck on. But yeah, sorry, I'll just add that in.
Quite right. At the end of the day, I always say, if you've got a moisture meter, one of those things with the 2 prongs on it.
Yep.
Go to your workbench, which has been stood in your workshop for 5 years. Test that, and that is the absolute perfect benchmark, because that is what your workshop is. And if anything comes close to that, it's dry.
It's got to be a benchmark, because it's your bench, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh God! But yeah, that was bad, wasn't it? But,
you're all week, folks.
Yeah.
Well, at least it feels like that anyway.
Yeah. Well, like Pete says, 15%. With me, it's. I think wood is dry to me if it's around 12. If it's around 12%, I'm chuffed to beans. But normally, as Pete says, it's normally around the 15%. If you're living in somewhere like Georgia or Atlanta where the humidity is high, or if you're living in Las Vegas where it's hot, then it's got to be. Ireland. The Highland's got to be 45,
Ireland is about
50.
60%.
Yeah. But that's like I in Wales. That's why I moved out of Wales, you see, because it's too wet. But no, it depends on the environment where you live, you know.
Yeah, it does. And a 200-year-old piece of wood, if you was to post it to Death Valley, it would be very wet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Yep. So it is. It's a living thing, although it's been cut down and it's not growing anymore. It's still a living thing. So it takes on moisture and gets rid of moisture as it wishes, you know. So nothing you can do about that, really. But right, guys, I think unless there are any more questions, I mean, I could sit and chat for another hour or so. We've already gone over the 2-hour mark now. But not too much, because I started late anyway. So once again, to all you guys, especially the 93 that are still here, thank you very much indeed for coming. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So it's goodbye from Pete.
Cheers, all. Thanks for coming in.
And it's goodbye from Terry.
Bye, everybody. Nice to see you all.
And goodbye from Brian.
Goodbye, everybody.
And a very goodbye from me, and I'll see you very soon. You take care. Cheers now. Right, stream has ended.